Since the last devlog, I've been getting a shared screen co-op working for Shield Maidens, but not without some issues. I'm using the new Unity input controls, and the first problem I had was that every time a player got instantiated, they were losing their player controls property. I'll show you later in this video how I found a way around this and the main menu I've built to play multiplayer. Secondly, when first playing co-op, actions from one joypad was triggering on the other, which is obviously a strange behaviour. Some googling had me stumble across the Unity forum where someone had advised to avoid send messages and instead use invoke Unity events or Unity actions instead. After I changed the behaviour, there was no more interference. However, I did realise, looking back at the old code, I was using a mix of the old input system, input get access raw horizontal, whereas now I'm just using the callback context, so I'm pretty suspicious that that was causing the issue. When invoking Unity events, I've noticed two important rules in your code. A, they have to be public, and B, they need a parameter of input action callback context, and you can name that whatever you like. Then we use the context to set our input. Making things multiplayer. We now have a second player design, but I've kept it simple and only changed the hair colour and obviously the shield so we don't lose it during combat. I'm keen to do a devlog in the future where I really go to town on my game art, polish some stuff like these spike pits and make the game feel much cooler to run through, but for now let's just talk about making things multiplayer. There's a few things you gotta bear in mind when turning a single player game into multiplayer. One of the biggest being the current logic. Like me, you've likely also coded something in the past without any regard to scalability and it's come back and bit you in the ass. You soon realise that you have to rewrite code that took you hours to figure out the first time around, except now you're coming in at a new angle. The job now is to make previous logic for enemies in combat work for multiple players. Even if this ends up just being a two-player co-op, my goal is to write the code so that if and when we do decide to include a third, a fourth, or even a battle royale, I can come back to this project and easily implement that without having to rewrite my logic. The enemy's logic in finding the correct player to attack needed rethinking, since now they're not just looking for one target anymore. Originally, they would look for a game object of type player and run the line of sight code against it indefinitely. Now on update, if the archer and mage don't have a target, they will run through each player, check which is the closest, and then see if it's in line of sight to begin attacking. The enemy won't stop or change target until that player is out of range or dead. It will then run through each player again and the cycle repeats. Knights are a little different. They needed to just go for the closest character so that you can't block them. Therefore, I've overwritten the update function on the base class to look for the closest player regardless if chosen target is null or not. Hence the new keyword before the void update. Main menu now has 1 and 2 player options. The way I've made this scalable is by using each button to set the number of players in the static class. The game manager on start will check the static class, loop through all of the players and destroy any player game object that exceeds the player selected from the menu. In future, I'll probably put a 2-part menu that lets you have as many players as you have USB ports, and the same logic should work just fine. Since no players need to be instantiated at the start of the game this way, this negated having to use the new input press to join function. It also fixes our issue from the start where we was losing our player input controls. The game management class now continuously checks a variable set at the start of the game called number of players. When a player dies, it will trigger some code in there to -1 from the player count until hitting 0. On top of that, the dead players will be removed from the camera group so that it no longer gets stuck following them. Speaking of the camera, I wasn't sure how to stop players from running off the screen if they got too far away from each other. I did something similar to how the knight searches for the closest players, but reversed it. It was possible to completely stop the player from running, but I chose to go with this dragging effect because I thought it would feel much more fun to drag your friends across the map. I'm going to take a step back from coding features into this game because right now I feel like I'm happy with where the current gameplay is at. This is now going to be saved as version 0.2 because a lot has been realised up to this point, making it a milestone. The next video in this series is going to tackle some different issues like improving my art or possibly making some music or sound in Ableton to add to the game. I do want to mention Novaborn's comment about cavalry. This gave me an idea for bosses that you could randomly encounter in the future. But meanwhile, I'm just going to sit on these ideas and have a think about how I can implement them. Finally, I'm also looking into ways I can branch out my content. Augmented reality is a really interesting area for me right now, so maybe making a tutorial or a simple Unity mobile app, or instead going back to a procedural island generator that I made a while back and breaking that down if it's something people are interested in. If so, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.